First mock trade that was submitted to Joe Smith. Mateo sniffed out. Throw up here for us. Wild send Riley Heidt and a 2027 third to receive Brock Nelson from the New York Islanders.
I mean, I don't want to do that again. Like, is in the grand scheme of things, like, yes, Riley Heidt, he's been outstanding since they drafted him. 2027 third, whatever. Brock Nelson, we've talked about how old he is already, and I mean, I would rather keep one of your top prospects. I mean, and also at the same time, like, are you going to extend Nelson? I would imagine if you give up anything, the plan is to extend him. I'd be curious to know if, like, Islanders would even say yes to it in the first place. They probably, if they do lose Nelson, I'm sure they're going to try to really jack up that price. I'm curious to know, like, what the opinion of Riley Heidt is around the league anyways. Like, that's the one thing I can never tell.
But, like, he's the one person for me, especially in our prospect pool. How does anyone know what he is?
Right.
He was boxed out, of course, the last year where he can't play college hockey. He's technically too young to play in Iowa, which, like, is bullshit based on some of the things that have transpired in his career. And then he goes back to WHL, and weird, like, yeah, he basically does what he did before, slightly below pace, but it's like, what more can the guy prove in the WHL? Right? So I have no idea what his value would be perceived as league-wide. I can tell you, first and foremost, he is one of my favorite prospects, and I get very weirdly obsessed with certain players. People have seen it. Sometimes I'm very right. Sometimes I'm very wrong, or Bill Guerin decides I'm very wrong. RIP in peace, Kalen Addison. But I love Riley Heidt. I'm excited to see what he can do in Iowa next year, because I think that kid's going to come in and fucking torch.
Mm-hmm.
But is this like a fair trade if there's an extension in the works and it's not going to be more than 3 or 4 years for Brock Nelson? Sure, it's reasonable. Do I want it to happen? No.
Yeah, and I mean, I would imagine as far as the draft pick goes, New York's going to be like...
Right. Hang on. Cosgrove nailed it. He's not getting traded until I buy his jersey.
Right.
That's how it works. Although, hang on, though. We still have Rossi. No one knows.
You knock on something.
I've had that Rossi jersey for so long.
I know, but we try not to say it, though.
Pitlick and Addison happened a lot quicker.
True.
So I think I'm safe-ish, but yeah, it's scary.
I do imagine, now I look at it too, like, I don't think New York would do it. Like, I don't think they would go for a 2027. Like, if you were talking, they probably want another, they probably want 2 picks. If you're doing 2027 third, they would want one in 2025 or 2026 too. But I mean, again, like, for me, the big thing is just, like, he's 33 now. He's going to be 34 by the time the season starts next year. You really, even with the cap going up, is this the center you want to go, like, try to lock in on a couple of years? And would he take a 3-year deal? I don't know. Like, he's going to want more.
I'd be okay with 4. If he wants 5, I'm out.
Right. So
4 I can stomach, especially depending on what the AAV is. But I don't know, dude. Like, he feels, it's weird. He's a redundancy, but at the same time, he's a redundancy for a guy that gets hurt all the fucking time in Joel Eriksson Ek. So if he wants to come back for a reasonable contract, I would love to have him here this summer. I don't want him right now. Like, the reason that you'd bring in a Brock Nelson is if Ek is out long term, like through the regular season and potentially into the postseason. I understand going and getting a Brock Nelson who you might want to extend because he replaces Ek. But if Ek's coming back, no, thank you.
All right, to be honest, even then, I would probably rather the rental.
Agreed, but I'm not giving up Riley Heidt for a rental.
Right, for a rental.
At least not for this rental. If you're giving up Riley Heidt for Rantanen to round out the season, okay, I'm in.
Only if a first also comes back. Okay, Rantanen and a first round.
Nope. I want a second. I want to replace the second we lost.
Point. I should have thought of that. That's my bad.
Idiot. Why would you want a first? That's so
dumb.
What
are you idiots?
All right, Mateo, what do we got next? Oh, all right. So mock trade proposal number 2. Liam Ogren, Frederick Goudreau, son of Dean Evison, and a 2025 second, which means we have no pick through the first 3 this year. Terrifies me. For Jared McCann from the Seattle Kraken. Z, what say you?
I'd say in the face, it's not like like McCann's one of those guys. I'm curious to see what happens with this deadline because I think the for the pick, they're gonna want at least a first round pick for him. Just how ridiculously good he is. Like his shooting percentage.
Ogren not count as a first?
I'd be curious to know what teams around the league think, honestly.
I would think he's satisfied. Him in a second gets you way more than that first you're talking about. That's just my opinion, but it's a reasonable point to bring up.
Yeah. I think McCann signed for another couple of years. God, what's he making? I literally looked at his contract.
He's a 5x5.
5.5. It was 5.5.
5.5. Okay.
For another couple of years, right? Beyond.
It's gotta be for at least 2 or 3 more years. I'll find it.
Yeah. Well, obviously we cannot go 2 years in a row with no second round pick. So that's, we can't.
Well, especially this year. Also, you can't give up the 2025 second because you already gave up the 2025 first and third. Judd will not stand for this. Although maybe it's job security to be like, oh, okay, you guys want to punt on this year? Sure. See how that does for you.
Yeah.
See if you end up in Scott Wheeler's top 10 prospect pools. You son of a bitch. And no, it's $5 million, not 5.5.
I like McCann. I think he could potentially get them a huge haul. The combination of the second round pick and Ogren, I don't love at the same time when you look at how many like scoring center/wings that we already have in Minnesota prospect pool. It's not like the craziest thing in the world. And I mean, we've heard Ogren floated in trade rumors before anyways. Like as far as like a top prospect that you could go out and use to go get like a big piece or whatever, like we've seen Ogren's been one of those prospects that we've seen floated there before.
I thought McCann had 3 more years. He has 2 more after this one because straight up to your point, like scoring wingers, like anyone who thinks McCann is actually a center is wrong.
That's the other part.
In Pittsburgh, he is not a center. Can he play it? Sure. You're bringing him in to be a top 6 winger, and he would excel at it, but he's 28. He's got beyond this season 2 more years. I'd be way happier if it was 3 because I don't know what happens after that deal, but Jared McCann gives you an instant jolt. Like he is your second best winger behind third best winger if Kaprizov and Boldy are both healthy. Like he is a great player. I love Jared McCann. I still curse Ron Hextall for sending him out. So many things he did that pissed me off, but that one pissed me off the most. And anyone that hasn't listened, go check out the Nick Bugstead interview on Fellowship of the Rink. He speaks very fondly of Jared McCann. So go check it out. But I'd be okay. I'd be okay with this deal. I'm probably, now that I see that there's only 2 more years of McCann, I'd probably rather have the young Ogren and see how he develops personally. But if this is the move Guerin made, I'm not sitting here like freaking out. I'm accepting it. I'd rather keep Ogren.
Mm-hmm.
Fair?
Yeah, and I think it's like a fair trade too, but
it's reasonable. It's reasonable.
Yeah.
All right, Mateo, what do we got next? Oh, baby. All right, we have Riley Heidt, Carson Lambos, yet again the 2025 second for Dylan Cozens. Money definitely doesn't work here. So let's ignore that fact. Z, if the money worked, do you take this trade?
I would imagine Buffalo says no.
I imagine Buffalo says, fuck yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Like I take this trade immediately. Yeah. I love Riley Heidt. I love Carson Lambos. I love second round picks for Judd. I'm doing this every fucking time. I think Dylan Cozens is an absolute stud. I don't care what he's done this season. Like he is he's that
Buffalo. Guy wherever he goes, if he gets moved, wherever he goes.
And I mean, Cosgrove, it's fair. Like this year's been bad for him, but like, I'm sorry, Dylan Cozens, fucking rocks. My dear friend Joey, living out in Wyoming, he is literally when people say diehard fan, like he literally dies every time he watches the Buffalo Sabres. He would cry at this trade proposal. I'm sorry, dude. Yeah, so this one's not happening. Buffalo would tell us to go straight to hell, but would I take it? Fuck yeah. And
yeah,
that's
so like, what do you think?
love every piece we're giving up. I love all three. So
yeah. So like another way to look at it though, like if Buffalo is going to make this work, I would imagine they swap a different prospect in for Lambos, and they would want that 2026 first round pick.
which one though? Because like I don't want to give up Juracek. I love him.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
Also, who's the other prospect?
That's the thing. I don't know. Well, I mean, do they even want?
You're gonna give up Urov? Don't think so.
Right. No.
I mean, let's go through the list. Right? It's you're not giving up William. You're not giving up Wallstedt. You're not giving up Juracek. You're not giving up Urov. Height's the next guy, isn't he?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, Height's in.
And then no, I understand, but after that, like, there's not many before Lambos, are there?
No, I mean, I think there'd be more people. Like it would be.
But you're saying more, not just like not replace Lambos with a different prospect. You're saying add one more prospect.
I was gonna say like Stramel probably ends up in that move.
Wild fans would probably cheer aggressively and be wrong.
I have no idea what people would think anymore.
I want to see him be a bottom six center for the Wild. I want to see him succeed. He's such a good kid.
It also, I mean, like the prospects that they would be wanting back if they were to actually make this move. Like a lot of that would also depend on their plans for Bowen Byram and Owen Power. They've got a couple other ones too.
I think
like
Power's up in the air. I think they're keeping Byram, and I think they're keeping Dahlin. I think Cozens is movable. I think even though the owner loves him, it sounds like Peterka's a guy that might have to be moved. Dude, if they made Thompson available, I'm all in. Like I'll give up anything short of Kirill.
Mm-hmm.
No, Kirill and Faber. Sorry.
I don't know if there's actually a way to make this trade that. I mean,
I'll tell you how.
Rossi would be.
Yeah, no, Rossi's going the other way if you're bringing in Cozens.
That's the other thing too. It's a current roster player. They don't want any futures. Like they do not want.
Right. Futures. They've made that very clear. But I think these are near enough futures that it could be argued, right? But again, it's not a fair trade. Like Cozens is more valuable than everything being offered. I do wonder what it would take Rossi plus what to get Cozens. And at the end of the day, what is Rossi asking in a contract? If he wants $8 or $9 million, this becomes way more entertaining, right? Because I think Cozens is a better NHLer than Rossi. I love Marco Rossi. I think Cozens has more upside than Rossi does. And Rossi might be asking for more on an AAV than Dylan Cozens. So at that point, I'm not mad if that's the kind of move that Guerin makes if Rossi leaves. Now, if Rossi leaves and he brings back futures or some fucking like middle six bullshit player, like no. But if Rossi plus something for Cozens is the move, I could be talked into that. All right, Mateo, what do we got next? Who?
Pass.
No.
Rossi and Bouillon for Dylan Larkin is a hard no for me.
Honestly, though, I feel like both sides probably don't want to do this, right? Is this like a weird one where it's like, it's not that it's an unfair trade, it's that I just don't want to do it.
I mean, if you're Detroit, you're probably sitting there like, I mean, the last player you want to give up is Larkin, but if you bring in another top six center and a potential number one D-man, like, yeah, I'm doing that.
Is Rossi viewed league-wide as a top six center?
It's a good question. I mean,
that's my real challenge to that statement. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just, is Rossi that guy from the perspective of other GMs? Our GM doesn't see him as a top six center. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine teams probably look at him as a 2. It's just so interesting because there's so few players who can successfully produce points, be a factor in all 3 zones, play center, being 5'9" and not the greatest skater in the world,
I
and
love
yet
him.
here he is.
No, I love him. I'm not arguing that. It's just
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, that's what it's like. That's why I wonder what GMs would think about him outside of Minnesota. But I mean,
I want Russo and Joe to take like a random poll of GMs that aren't Bill Guerin, saying, "What do you think Marco Rossi is in 2 or 3 years? 1C, 2C, 3C, 4C, move to the wing." I want that answer.
Yeah. Either way, Booyam is the part of this. It's like no.
Yeah, no, agreed. But can we agree that, like, outside looking in, if we don't care about either of these teams, like, this is a reasonable trade?
Outside of what?
If we don't give a shit about either of these teams, if this trade went down, would you be like, what the fuck is happening? Or would you be like,
Booyam is the piece that it's like, what are you doing?
Okay.
Like,
Larkin's the 1C that the Wild have never had. And it's funny because in Detroit, he's like, people are like, can he really be a 1C? But like in Minnesota, he's a fucking 1C. He is the best center we've ever had. Period.
mm-hmm.
And the Wild have decent blue line depth. Do I want to, again, am I accepting this trade? No. But can I objectively step back and look at this being a reasonable trade? Sure. I just personally don't want it for where the Wild are at right now in their trajectory, right? If the Wild were a center away from truly contending, I'm in. But they're not. So I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, even then, you look at, like, I think the fact that both Rossi and Booyam, obviously, like they're both.
You forget the key component here, Z. His brother plays for Detroit. Maybe Zeev Boyam is requesting this trade.
Yeah.
Maybe. Hang on. Let's go full circle here. Brock Faber forced LA to send him back home. What if Zeev's like, I followed my brother everywhere. I followed him to Shattuck. I followed him to Denver. I have to follow my brother to Detroit, and I don't want to play for Minnesota. Then do you make this trade?
Just demanding.
Hey.
I mean, again, though, for me, like the other day, Booyam is a potential like top
2.
No, top as far as like prospects league wide. He's probably in that top 10.
Well, you understand he's 2 for Wheeler.
Right. And then Rossi's your 23-year-old right now, first line center. And I really want to I'm going to knock on wood saying this. He is the one top of the lineup player that you've had the last 2 years who's remained completely healthy.
Yeah, right. Knock on all of the fucking wood.
Literally all of it.
Scary.
Which that's to me is like, that is legitimately something that should actually factor in.
And hey, Hoptics agrees with you. All about the durability for Rossi. And again, I love Booyam and Rossi. I do not want to make this trade. I'm just saying, in a weird world where, hey, we got Faber because he wanted to play here and he made that very clear. If Booyam's made it clear he wants to go to Detroit and this is the trade we make, I could be more mad. That's all.
Fair.
But whatever. All right, Mateo, what's next? Holy shit. This is a big one. We have Marco Rossi, Liam Ogren, 2027 first for Brady Tkachuk from the Ottawa Senators. I have opinions, but I'm going to let you go first, Z.
Why does 2027 keep going?
What do you mean 2027? We've seen the 2025 second the last like 3 trades.
No team who has to part ways with either their like a top 3 player of theirs or a top 3 prospect is like, yeah, 2027.
Hang on, though. In fairness, you look at the Wild and what they've done recently, like this year and next year, you can pretty much count on it not being a great pick. Things could go south by 2027. You might get lucky. Roll the dice. But yeah, it's probably a 2026 first if you're going to make this trade. So let's just audibly make that change. It's Rossi, Ogren in 2026 first for Brady Tkachuk. Who wins this trade?
Probably Minnesota.
Minnesota. If Brady Tkachuk wants to play here and is down to come here, I'm sorry. Again, I love Rossi and Ogren. I'm taking this trade every time. Brady Tkachuk is a fucking difference maker. I don't know why people talk down on him as much as they do. I hope that like what happened at Four Nations has changed that narrative a little bit, but like I would be so fucking happy if Brady Tkachuk was a Minnesota Wild player. It'd be great.
I mean, I think Ottawa looks at that and says no, obviously. Especially with
do you think it's far off though? If Brady's like saying he's like interested in leaving, how much do you have to add to make this a real trade? Because I agree with you. I think the Wild win this clean out. But if Brady's like, no, I don't want to be here.
Yeah. So that would be obviously the factor.
The only way that he's being traded is if he says he doesn't want to be there. Why would they trade him?
By the way, Brady, 25 minutes ago, fought Tom Wilson. Just fun fact. Didn't lose. That's for sure.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's terrifying.
They both landed a couple big. I think Wilson may have landed 2 big ones, but Brady. I swear, Brady punches through people. It's nuts. When he's fighting, I'm like, oh my god.
I love though. After he fought Sam Bennett, he like asked Matthew. He's like, "Yo, like,
did it look good?
Shit, cool." And he's like, "Yeah, he hasn't said anything about it."
Yeah. Well, also like in the box, they're like, did it? He was like, did it look good? He's like, yeah. What about Mayo's? Unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's so funny to me.
The dap up.
Yeah.
I love that they went on the Kelsey podcast too.
Yeah,
together.
Right.
Like, okay, Kelseys are moving forward, only having on Swifties and siblings.
Yeah. But with this trade specifically, I would imagine to make it more palatable, unless again Tkachuk saying no, I want to leave, and that becomes like public knowledge. Outside of that, like if you were just to try to straight up make this work, obviously Rossi's there, and they're gonna probably like demand one of your top prospects, so like a Booyam or a Wallstead. Like when I look at the goaltenders that they have there now, like Linus Ullmark, obviously they've locked him up. And then behind them, they've got some guys that can play. So do they look at the goaltender? Hurov, I don't know. But it feels like the prospect would have to not be Ogren or well, they definitely want. God. I don't know how you make that one work either, but it does start with Rossi, that 2026 first. Since you don't have the 2025 first. And like probably 2026 first is going to be more valuable anyways. But they're going to want one of the top prospects for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just like thinking in my head, you know. They probably want another like potentially like a middle lineup roster player too. Who knows? But I mean, either way, like even if that was the 2026 first, this trade right here, like Ottawa's like, nope. But fun fact, that's where Rossi played junior. Did play 6-7s.
It's funny because him to Ottawa for that reason makes sense, and him to Buffalo to play with Jack Quinn also makes sense. So, beautiful jersey though. I got to give credit.